It's race 10 of the season, the French Grand Prix at ultra-smooth Manicourt. The Schumacher brothers continuing their battle for supremacy. Hello there. Well, the dust has hardly settled since that Schumacher spat last weekend at the Nürburgring. Michael forcing Ralph close to the wall at the start of the European Grand Prix, then going on to score 10 out of 10 and increase his World Championship lead over David Coulthard to a daunting 24 points. Well, here in France, Ralph celebrated his 26th birthday with a qualifying landmark. Big Brother was on pole at this race last year and had gone quickest in practice, but Ralph sets a Manicourt record. First time in the 113s thanks to BMW power and the Michelin's working superbly in track temperatures of over 40 degrees. Briefly, Michael's on pole, and then halfway through the session, Ralph delivers a quite sensational 112.9. Beat that if you can. Late on, the world champion does his best, but the Ferrari comes up 100th of a second short. A last-ditch charge from David Coulthard puts last year's winner on the second row, alongside McLaren teammate Hakkinen. Staying on track is a major problem for Barrichello, Irvine's Jaguar, French hope Jean Alesi, and Luciano Berti. So we have an all-Schumacher front row, but Ralph on pole for the first time in his career, and that's the first Williams pole in 58 races. Then Coulthard hungry for points, and Hakkinen, the Jordans, Trulli and Frentzen sandwich Montoya lightning quick in that second Williams. Barrichello, Heidfeld and Villeneuve round out the top 10. Irvine's 12th, Button just out-qualified by Fisichella again. Sad to see Alesi starting 19th. Well, problems yet again for McLaren on the parade lap. Mika Hakkinen failing to get away. He's wheeled into the pit lane, while Pedro de la Rosa's Jaguar stops out on the circuit. Let's join Martin Brundle and James Allen for the start.
Remember how Michael Schumacher cut into David Coulthard last year? Will Ralf Schumacher do the same thing? A great start from him. He's got fantastic traction off the grid, and it looks like the McLaren is side by side with Schumacher as they go into Grand Court for the first time, but Schumacher gets in front. Ralf Schumacher leads from Michael Schumacher. David Coulthard third. Juan Montoya up into fourth place with Trulli fifth. A sensational start by both of the two Williamses, and not quite what Michael Schumacher had in mind. He really wanted to be in the lead going into this hairpin on the first lap.
Dream start then for Ralf Schumacher, no doubt about it. Coulthard and Michael Schumacher, and Ralph's locked a wheel, but he'd get away with it, I think. But Ralph braking slightly too late for that hairpin, but no damage done this time. Coulthard then side by side with Michael Schumacher into the first corner, but it turns into a piece of track that's like threading a needle. There is no room, and Coulthard had to yield, so he stays then in third place. Ralf Schumacher leads Michael Schumacher.
And not making a break at the moment. Michael Schumacher staying right with his younger brother as we go through halfway through the lap now. David Coulthard looking strong. Those are the two marshals looking out of the way to get De La Rosa's stricken car.
I'm somewhat amazed, James, to see so many marshals on what is a runoff zone, effectively, into that 180-mile-an-hour arrival zone, into that Imola chicane. Clearly, and I didn't see any waved yellows either.
I think what they were doing, Martin, we just saw De La Rosa's car going through in front of the leaders at the moment. As you look at Mika Hakkinen, it looks like he's out of this race. De La Rosa must have got push started. That's what the marshals are doing, running out of the way. But at the end of lap one, Ralf Schumacher leading from Michael Schumacher in second place. Coulthard is third, Montoya fourth, Barrichello fifth, Trulli sixth, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is seventh, Villeneuve eighth, Kimi Räikkönen up to ninth. His teammate Nick Heidfeld is 10th, Eddie Irvine in 11th, and Jenson Button fans, your man is 17th.
Here we go. Here's yes, we can see that Frentzen was very slow away anyway with the two yellow cars. There is Coulthard and Michael Schumacher. Coulthard running out of space, had to get out of the throttle, and I'm assuming then Barrichello in the second Ferrari, you can see him currently in sixth place, must nail that Jordan on the way down to the hairpin. And look at the pace of this race, James. The 16.9 that's currently the fastest lap is already a new lap record around this place. It's a 1:17.0 held before, so then already we're seeing, despite them having, say, 55 or 60 kilos of fuel on board, remember 10 kilos of fuel is over 0.3 of a second per lap, and then that must be a technical problem there for Villeneuve, I think, because it was initially it looked like a small mistake, but then the car has faded away, so that releases Räikkönen and Heidfeld up into that 8th, and we think Villeneuve has actually gone off into the gravel. So, in fact, driven off apparently. So Villeneuve then, some kind of technical drama in turn 2, the Estoril corner. Yes, Villeneuve then coasting around the outside. He was looking down inside the cockpit. I think that's why he initially went onto the grass, but he's decided he's got no drive. He doesn't want to cross the track, obviously, to the inside. It'd be very, very dangerous to do that, so he's simply parked it in the enormous gravel trap around the outside of that corner.
Louise Goodman has news for us from Mika Häkkinen.
Yes, I have Mika with me now. Mika, I know you're not able to tell us exactly what happened, but just tell us the thoughts that went through your mind when you stopped on the grid there.
Well, I think simply it's just what's going on in my mind that time. You know, it's like feeling like you cannot believe it. You can't believe how bad luck I had that kind of situation. You know, when engine started, I thought everything is fine, and they suddenly stopped. And I just sat there, and the team mechanics tried to do everything to make the car to start again. So I was super disappointed, but I walked away again and said, well, just have to look the future and try to still to look very positive, you know.
Raikkonen then going for an extraordinarily early stop, so it looks like he's either decided to stop early within his two-stopper and try to clear Frentzen. I doubt it, because he's going to go back out into the pack in a lot more traffic and get held up anyway, or he's on a three-stopper, which is probably more likely. Meanwhile, Ralf Schumacher has done a new lap record of a 1:16.6 this time around as the fuel load begins to ebb away.
And this is Eddie Irvine putting enormous pressure on the BAR of Olivier Panis. This is the battle for 9th place. Could yield points at the end of the day, so everything is at stake here for both of these drivers. They're fighting tooth and nail at the moment. Irvine has been much quicker than Panis through the final stages of the lap and chucking the car all over the place in his attempts to get past the British-American racing car. Amazingly, that's Enrique Bernoldi pulling off in the Arrows Asia Tech. He was down in 13th place, but looks like his race is run. But this is the battle, as I say, between Panis and Irvine. Panis yet never scored points, would you believe, in the French Grand Prix, his home Grand Prix in all those years, as we look at the timing stand of Jaguar. And once again, you can see that Eddie Irvine has lost ground through that first corner, so Panis able to use the Honda power, but Ralf Schumacher pulling out yet more of a margin, more speed, a 1:16.585, and he's certainly belying all the comments we made about those Michelin soft tyres. At the moment he's finding more and more speed and more grip from them, Martin.
He did. Gerhard Berger was saying to me he didn't believe there was much time difference actually between the soft and the hard that his two drivers are on, but he said, I'm really not at all sure about the durability. But they're on their 20th lap, and so far they're looking pretty durable. Another 6 or 7, and we're expecting them in for a pit stop. So no dramas at all then for Ralf Schumacher. He's just holding on to that 1.7 second lead. But the first 5 cars, Ralf Schumacher, Michael Schumacher, Coulthard, Montoya, Barrichello, and are all lapping in the late 1:16.
And still only 10 seconds between them, first to fifth, so it's very, very close. Kevin Piper, what can you tell us?
Yeah, just to underpin the point you're making about tyres there, down here in the Williams garage, we're in stark contrast to the earlier scenes at McLaren. It's all cool, calm, collected. Patrick Head and the team with their eyes firmly fixed on the various screens and monitors here, charting the progress. But the point is worth making that Juan Pablo Montoya was absolutely adamant after qualifying yesterday that he had made the right choice. The hard tyre, in his view, was his best chance of getting a good result. And a quick word about the rivals, Bridgestone, Coulthard and Schumacher, both big fans, and one tyre technician described them as having really good grip, but above everything, fantastic durability. So it all makes for an intriguing battle.
Jenson Button pitting there from 13th position and showing that they were on a relatively light fuel load at the beginning of the race, so bad news there for Jenson. That's put him down to 15th. Raikkonen, who made that very early stop, I think you're right, James, Raikkonen's stop could not have been a scheduled one in any way, shape or form, and that put him back down in 14th place. Shame for him, but up at the front it's still equally tight.
Now you'll have seen when Jenson Button made that pit stop that the front tyres he put onto the car looked like they'd already done a race distance, and that's because with these softer Michelin tyres they're all having to what they call scrubbing them in, just putting a few laps on them first. Now you're looking at the tyres there of Ralf Schumacher, the race leader. He's on the same kind of tyres as Jenson Button, and I understand that they needed to start this race on tyres which have done 13 laps at least. And that's certainly what looks like what Button had just put on his car. And no doubt Ralf Schumacher, when he comes in for his stop, sometime in the next 5 or 6 laps, he'll be putting the same on. But just look how close it still is at the front. Still only 10 seconds separating first to fifth.
And they're amongst the back markers then, James, albeit the ones that have stopped. And the teams very much calculate this when they're working out their strategy for the afternoon. How long will it be into the race, given normal lap differences between the front and rear of the grid, before they catch the back markers?
Unfortunately for Jenson Button, he is one of the back markers. And right below us, we have the Ferrari mechanics coming out now to make a pit stop. Just looking to see, I think it might well be Michael Schumacher who's coming in. And it's Rubens Barrichello, in fact. Rubens Barrichello coming in to make his first stop from 5th place.
No apparent dramas at the moment. Revs are up, he's disappeared from underneath our commentary box, and away goes Rubens Barrichello into that new pit exit where you feed in much later. Some of the drivers have been unhappy about that, but it's certainly a better solution than feeding you in right into the heart of turn 1. But I think there is a point where the cars come very, very close together at a very high speed. Some of the drivers uncomfortable with that, but that then is Heidfeld in for his first stop of the afternoon. And Michael Schumacher there, currently still in 2nd place, 2.4 seconds now behind Ralf.
Yes, Ralf has cleared Jenson Button, though Michael Schumacher still has yet to do so. And we're entering the zone now for the first pit stops. Everybody looking very carefully at what everybody else is doing. You can see this is the battle now. Irvine got in front of Olivier Panis. This is the battle for 9th place. Here's how he did it.
So it's into the last part, and he's going to take the big banzai up the inside into Lise. That's a cheeky move, but it pays off as long as you have a willing partner, and that's a clever move from Irvine, one he had to make. He has a much faster car, and Panis then really not fighting that one too hard, James.
He seemed very wide over, didn't he? It's almost like inviting him through.
Yeah, I think he saw it launched, and once you've elected to have a go at that move, there's a one-way street. You switch that move on, you cannot switch it back off again halfway through, and I think we all know that. We've all achieved that move at some point or other, and we've all been victims of the same move.
What do you do, just close your eyes and hope for the best?
It's a little bit like that, and you launch into that last corner, you think, well, why didn't I go into that as fast as that every time?
Eddie Irvine's made it work for him. I wonder whether it looks like Olivier Panis might well have dived into the pits there, having got passed by Eddie Irvine. But there's your race leader still after 22 laps of this 71-lap French Grand Prix, approaching the first round of pit stops. Ralf Schumacher still by 2.4 seconds from his brother Michael. Coulthard is 3rd, just another 2 seconds down, and then it's Montoya and Trulli. So very much action stations coming up.
It makes sense that Barrichello's pitting earlier than the others. Remember, he started in 8th place on the grid. By having 10 or 15 kilos less fuel, he had a much better chance of overtaking in the early few corners, and of course, he made that pay off very nicely as Jean Alesi then in the Prost Acer makes his stop. Some very used Michelins going on. 8.4 seconds. I don't know why they keep cutting away to the pit wall when they're doing that. It'd be nice to see the cars depart.
They were absolutely exasperated in the Prost garage after qualifying yesterday. Apparently Jean Alesi could not get his head into gear at all. It was the French Grand Prix. Maybe he was just overexcited, but he was over a second slower than his teammate Luciano Berti. Apparently all his discipline of all these years of racing, he's been in Formula 1 now for 12 years, all went completely out the window, and he completely underperformed yesterday. He just got too emotional. We saw in the build-up to this show just how emotional he can be. On the 24th lap, and this is the Williams pit crew getting ready to receive one of their 2 drivers. They're both contenders in this race. Ralf Schumacher, of course, is leading. Juan Montoya is in 4th place, and it's Ralf Schumacher who comes in, the race leader, on lap 25 to make his first pit stop, bang on schedule. Tidy work so far. Fuel going in. Look at how old those tyres are, Martin.
Yeah, they look well tatty, don't they? But clearly they're about to do the job, and that looked like a longish stop to me. That did not do the job.
Yes, that's at least 2 seconds longer than it should normally take for a 2-stop pit stop. So the window has now been opened for Ferrari. Michael Schumacher, can he get the hammer down? He was just 2.4 seconds behind his brother when his brother made his pit stop that time round. And Ralf certainly seemed to have the fuel hose on for quite a while, but I think the delay there was the right rear tyre
It wasn't all fuel that went in there by any stretch of the imagination. So Michael Schumacher, can he do enough now to get it in the pit stops to take the lead?
And the pit stop, I believe, James, will be this lap. Once again, there's an army of Ferrari mechanics in scarlet overalls and scarlet crash helmets underneath our window. Michael Schumacher in Chateau d'Eau. A couple of corners now to the entry of the pit lane. We think he will clearly be in this time, and they're putting brand new tyres on, I can see underneath there, and he'll duck left now, and there he goes. Schumacher then, your current race leader in the pit.
Well, he sat his fastest first sector of the entire race at the beginning of this lap. His middle sector wasn't too bad.
He was 2 seconds behind his brother when he came in, but after a slow stop for Williams, they lost time. What's going to happen here? A cracking stop by Ferrari. Is this going to be enough for Michael Schumacher to take the race lead? He's going so slowly, it must feel like an eternity down the pit lane. And has he done enough?
I believe he will have done enough. I would be very surprised if that's not enough for Michael Schumacher to have got out in front of Ralph. It was a turn a bit second, quicker stop. He had a quick in-lap too. And where, yeah, there he is. There's, he's done it. Ralf Schumacher then now demoted to second place. We think he took on about 74 litres of fuel, so a moderately short middle stint of the race then for Michael Schumacher.
Yes, and of course we saw Ralf Schumacher being delayed in the pits, but I don't believe that was all fuel going in. I do believe it was a slight problem with the rear tyre. We'll have to have that checked out, but obviously it'll make a big difference to when they make their second stops. Michael Schumacher, we're expecting to come in around the mid-lap 40s, but here's a man who still has not made his pit stop. David Coulthard, currently in second place, just 1 second behind Michael Schumacher on the racetrack. When he rejoins, he's going to come in at around about 5th place, I think, behind Ralf Schumacher, as Jos Verstappen makes his first stop of the afternoon.
So they're all choosing the optimum strategy finally then, and here then is Coulthard. He goes a little bit further down the pit lane to find his crew. Of course, they were second in last year's World Championship, so they're positioned second in the pit lane at every circuit we go to, and they're looking like they're fueling him slightly longer for David Coulthard. I believe he will stay in effectively what is 3rd place, although of course Montoya, your 4th place man previously, has not yet stopped.
But of course Coulthard was racing with Michael Schumacher, was only a second shy
of him. Is he going to rejoin? Where is Michael Schumacher? Is that Michael Schumacher behind Coulthard? I wonder if it is.
I think it is.
Do you think so? I think it's more likely to be Barrichello. He's been lapping quickly. So there's Ralph going through your picture, and there's Coulthard shaping up to pass the Minardi. But I think Barrichello, remember, he pitted early, put in those very fast laps, and it's helped his race enormously.
Yeah, Coulthard must have lost a little time, though, as well, Martin, I think, because he was only a second behind Michael Schumacher when he dived in for that stop. So
that's Rubens Barrichello down in 5th place. Coulthard then drops down just in front of him. Montoya has not yet stopped. How much fuel has this man got on board? That's a $10 million question. Of course, he's using the harder of the Michelin tyres. And Juan Montoya now in the box seats as far as this Grand Prix is concerned, as Eddie Irvine comes into the pits. This is lap 28 now, quite a late stop for a two-stopper, but certainly Juan Montoya, after qualifying yesterday, I mentioned he was feeling very bullish, and he did say that he felt there was a possibility of taking a few risks this afternoon. He said, I feel I might do something different in the race tomorrow. Certainly something very different from Ralph. It looks at the moment as though he's gone that way. He made a different choice on tyres. Has the strategy played out for Juan Montoya?
We're watching Michael Schumacher at this time, and hopefully if Montoya does pit, we will pick that up. It's down then at the Nürburgring chicane. Michael Schumacher has pulled the lead back now to 6.6 seconds behind this man, Montoya. He's got a bit of traffic ahead of him. He should not really have to clear that car before he enters the pit this time around, and we believe the pit crew are out. Yes, indeed, the Williams pit crew are ready to receive Montoya, and he has lost a bit of time. The Prost then making a bit of a fuss about letting him through, so Montoya into the pit lane. The team will be very ready for him. Out of the lead, into the pits.
So the telltale thing now is how long the fuel hose goes on for. Juan Montoya, the race leader, comes in. The fuel hose is on now. The stopwatch is running. If it's anything more than about 9 or 10 seconds, he could well be fueling it to go to the finish. It's not. He's going a two-stop strategy. So that means that Michael Schumacher leads the race.
From Ralf Schumacher, David Coulthard is
3rd. Rubens Barrichello as well is in the mix. Where's Montoya going to rejoin into the mix? As Juan Montoya took on just under 90 litres of fuel, and that'll take him
deep into the early lap 50s, I would imagine, which will make him
again the last stopper. And so a very interesting cat and mouse afternoon here tactically.
But the real race at the moment is Coulthard has closed down to Ralf Schumacher by just 1.2 seconds, and we believe there's a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for Coulthard for pit lane speeding. We think David Coulthard's about to get a stop-and-go. What a disaster that is. Michael Schumacher moves into the lead, and 10-pointer. Coulthard at least is on 4 in third at this time, and he is now going to get a stop-and-go.
The margin, of course, already between them in the World Championship is 24 points. So another solid 10 out of 10 for Michael Schumacher this afternoon. And null point for Coulthard will pretty much put another nail in the coffin of Coulthard's championship hopes. Although we still, of course, and there's the confirmation, we still have plenty of races left in this World Championship. Another 7 races. And, well, a very forlorn McLaren pit crew now coming out to get the stopwatch ready to time David Coulthard's stop and go, because of course the team have to do it themselves, don't they, Martin?
Yes, they do. He will stop at his own garage, and they cannot touch the car. He has to be stationary for at least 10 seconds. And while that's the second consecutive Sunday, a good race has been spoiled by necessary penalties, I'm afraid. I mean, you can't even stop and talk to the policeman and try and talk your way out of that and pretend you're on your way to your wife having a baby or something, can you? You're nicked and that's it. You've got to come in, argue about it later with the judge.
Well, one member of our team, of course, this weekend has already had a run-in with the constabulary on the speed offence. David Coulthard is just going to be having to come in and make his 10-second stop-and-go penalty. Here he is diving into the pit lane, was in 3rd place. This is going to drop him down, I imagine, to about 6th or 7th place, possibly behind Jarno Trulli. A disaster for David Coulthard.
Trulli's about 34 seconds behind the 6th place man. This will definitely put Coulthard, though, down into 5th place. Did you see Barrichello was only 2 seconds behind him anyway? Barrichello having a tidy middle part of this Grand Prix as Coulthard rejoins, and once again Bertie clumsily letting people past him.
There we have the battle for 8th place. Eddie Irvine making some pretty reasonable progress this afternoon. Here he is monstering Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Irvine always seeming to lose out, Martin, in this long, fast section here. I think he's running a bit too much downforce or something, because everybody he races against seems to get away from him down the straights, and he manages to close up to them under braking.
Yeah, but your straight line speed there is totally dictated by the exit of the Estoril corner. There's no VMAX situation here. There's no area of the track where you peak out on speed because of the drag of the car. It's all about running out of space and how quickly you were launched off the previous corner. But clearly Irvine with a better car in the slower stuff. I think he's just struggling, James, to follow closely, as everybody does, around that long Estoril corner in the dirty airstream of the car in front. But it's certainly a tigerish drive in that Jaguar.
Below us, Martin, Ferrari getting ready with another new set of tyres, so we wait to see whether that's seems a bit early for it to be on schedule. Rubens Barrichello made the first stop in the very early lap 20s, about 21 or 22 I think it was, and it's only 14 laps ago, in fact, he made his stop. Is he coming in as time by?
Well, they may have elected to do that because they think that if they get him in, get him some clear air, they will have calculated where he will rejoin the racetrack. Is there any traffic in that zone? Is that the way to springboard past Ralf Schumacher? Remember, last time they gave him fresh tyres, he went out and did a 1:16.1, a new lap record, and that could well get him up into 2nd place. So I think smart thinking there by the Ferrari team.
Very interesting tactics. Not seen anything like that for a long, long time. We're waiting to see where exactly Rubens Barrichello is going to rejoin, but of course they're taking advantage of this big gap there is in performance between the top 3 teams and everybody else, Martin. They're able to just use that big void, that vacuum, move the cars around and slot them in with no risk of being passed by the BARs and the Saubers of this world.
Now we can see also why they've done it. Look, they've got him back out in front of Coulthard. Remember, Coulthard had to make a 2nd stop for his stop-and-go penalty, speeding in the pit lane. I don't really understand how that can happen. There's a button on the steering wheel and it's controlled electronically, but Ferrari working out they can keep their man ahead of Coulthard, maybe find him some clear air. With the blue flag situation these days, that Prost will have to get out of the way quickly, and that's kept him in front of Coulthard and could well springboard him up into 2nd place.
A nose change here, looks like, down in the Minardi garage, and that is Alonso from 17th place, Martin.
That was a very quick nose change too. It normally takes 17, 18 seconds, but ironically they had the nose on before they finished refueling. That was impressive. Look, Montoya then just over a second adrift on the harder tyres, and Ralph not showing anything like the pace he did earlier on. He's back in the 1:17s and clearly not happy with the balance of that car, and it's all about balance, this racetrack. It's a very technical track. You need the car to go where it needs to go.
And of course the man who'll be really kicking himself about this is David Coulthard. He was just 1 second adrift of Ralf Schumacher when he had that stop-and-go issue. He would now almost certainly be monstering him, passing him, and up into, well, second place, really, and looking at trying to catch onto the back of Michael Schumacher. Meanwhile, it's Juan Montoya who is now climbing onto the back of Ralf Schumacher. They've got a back marker in front of them, and I think we're going to have some internal Williams squabbling coming fairly shortly.
And unless Barrichello does have to have a splash and dash later on, it is working out very nicely for him, quietly back there in 4th place, lapping about a second a lap faster than the Williams consistently, and that, as we said, is going to springboard him up into 2nd place. He's currently lapping same speed as the race leader and teammate Michael Schumacher, and Ralph then will easily clear that back marker under braking, and he doesn't do so, does he? Look, he's not happy. That's Bertie once again sort of making a big job of getting out of the way, but Ralph did not look confident into that hairpin. And here we go, Irvine makes the move finally on Frentzen, and I believe Frentzen should be penalised for that. Frentzen should let him go, otherwise he will get penalised because he saved a position by taking a shortcut. You won't get penalised if you don't take advantage, but by not losing the place, you're taking advantage.
And we saw Eddie Irvine gesturing there to the pit wall. You could see he was very unhappy. He believes also that Heinz-Harald Frentzen should move out of the way. Meanwhile, Martin, as we take a look at this first.
Yeah, Irvine then getting position into the chicane. Frentzen nowhere to go. He just elected to scream across the no man's land there, and that is cheating. That is not within the regulations. I'll be amazed if he doesn't get some kind of penalty, a stop-and-go penalty for that. What would have been smart there, and yes, he has let him through, look. Just as I say, what would be smart is to let him through if he wants to avoid that penalty.
Yes, this is the battle, of course, for 8th place between Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Eddie Irvine. Here it is from earlier on.
Yeah, and Frentzen, look, lifted off the throttle, yielded, did not make a fight of that at all, and I would suspect the team told him to do that.
Yeah, smart thinking. Yes, he waves. You can see clear acknowledgement of his mistake. It's cost him a place. It's cost him 8th place, in fact.
Well, the big story then that we can look for at the moment is, will Barrichello and Coulthard end up in front of those two Williams? And it's Montoya that goes through, and it is Ralph who comes into the pit lane, Kevin Piper.
Yes, and the other big story, is it going to be Ralph being told to defer to Montoya, or are they going to let them just go out and do their own thing? Patrick Head and Sir Frank Williams were locked in conversation just moments ago before this pit stop, and Ralph makes a quick exit, but it's going to be interesting because fairly shortly we should know who's going to come out on top in the battle here at Williams.
But I think the damage is already done, Kevin, because Michael Schumacher 20 seconds in the lead last time around, and we're expecting a Ferrari in this time too, and it must be for Michael Schumacher. We saw Barrichello pitting a few laps ago, so Michael Schumacher then in this time around, we believe.
Yes, and he's only 19.9 seconds ahead of Montoya, and that's not going to be enough for him to rejoin in front of the Colombian. So Montoya will again lead the race, I believe, after this pit stop. Michael Schumacher dives in. He needs to make this as quick as he possibly can. No pit lane speeding, of course, for him. They'll have warned him of what happened to Coulthard. No one wants to make that same mistake as David Coulthard made. New tyres going on, brand new tyres. So far, so good.
And this is where it pays off for Michael Schumacher when he does not do that extra run in qualifying. He saves new tyres from the Friday morning, for the Saturday morning, as the regulations now work out, through to, it wasn't a particularly good stop, James, was it? Montoya, I believe, will take the lead again, and he does so. Montoya then flashes through the foreground, but he's got to stop again. Michael Schumacher has not got to stop again. Schumacher, I think, will feel comfortable. We're all pretty sure that Montoya has to pit again, and I'm sure Ferrari will have the same information, and they will have also timed the amount of fuel going into that Williams. And is that Frentzen? He's having a miserable afternoon. Frentzen spinning in the final corner, and once again with traction control. That's a bit confusing how that can happen.
Absolutely. We've seen a few high-profile spins this weekend. Here it comes. Round and round he goes.
But the big news is, how much fuel has Barrichello got in the car, really? That's the story at the moment. Can Barrichello run to the end? He's been out of phase with the rest of them through the afternoon with his 2 early stops so far. Does he have enough fuel? Because if he does, we're looking at a Ferrari 1-2 here.
Well, Rubens Barrichello's had a bit of a tough time in the last few races, ever since being asked to move over, make room for his team leader, Michael Schumacher, in the Austrian Grand Prix. His head's gone down a little bit. Here's Juan Montoya, race leader though, on lap 51, making his stop. Everything fairly routine for the moment. A little bit of hesitation there, front jack man. Montoya right on the rev limiter and launches it down the pit lane. Where's he going to rejoin though? That's the question. Is Coulthard going to come into play? Is Ralf Schumacher going to come into play? Because don't forget that Ralf Schumacher and Montoya were right together on the racetrack before we got into the pit stop sequences.
And Coulthard, I believe I saw Coulthard go through from a long shot. Minardi and a McLaren look quite similar on the colour schemes, but I believe, yes, there is Coulthard is ahead. And so that's, yeah, Coulthard then ahead, and Ralf Schumacher is 5th. Where did Montoya come out? We think 5th, James. Yeah?
I think between Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher, because Ralf Schumacher's 4.1 seconds behind Coulthard on the racetrack. Haven't seen a wide shot yet that would tell us that, as Michael Schumacher just pulls another one of those tear-off strips off his visor. Little plastic film that they put on top of the visor just allows them to clear off the oil and the dirt that collects. They have 4 or 5 of them at the beginning of the race and work their way through them, just ripping them off just to make sure they've always got clear vision. Michael Schumacher got 21 laps to go. He wants to be able to see as clearly as he possibly can, and he's leading Rubens Barrichello by 9 seconds. And Montoya, just waiting to see exactly where Montoya rejoined. Coulthard, of course, still has to stop again. Ralf Schumacher has gone strongly. There's McLaren getting ready to presumably to receive, well, definitely to receive David Coulthard. Mika Häkkinen, of course, being out of the race.
Yes, indeed. Coulthard is in pit lane. Last time around, he was speeding in the pit lane. I'm assuming it's on the entry there, because there is a point where they have to hit the button. I can't understand how otherwise it could have been. He could have been caught for speeding, unless he just released the button a little bit too early at the end, or the software did not maintain the speed that it needs. But I suspect it would have been on the way in. And then Coulthard joining right behind Irvine. And Irvine is yet to stop again, but that's certainly Coulthard needs to clear quite quickly that Jaguar, unless otherwise he's going to be heavily compromised. I think Coulthard will be having a big stab up the inside here, and Irvine then going way too deep on the brakes. So
I think it's De La Rosa, actually. I think it's Pedro De La Rosa in 19th place, because Eddie Irvine must be right at the other side of the racetrack from him. I think that might well be Pedro De La Rosa, still tooling around in 19th place. He had a little problem on the parade lap. We thought he'd gone out of the race, but he has still been going out there. So he moved out of the way anyway, saw the blue flags, which if it was Eddie Irvine would be very unlikely to have done that, because he's on the same lap as David Coulthard. And Montoya pulling off the racetrack. Yet another retirement for the Colombian. Looks like some smoke coming out of the back of that BMW engine.
What a shame then. Montoya had regained 4th position. Barrichello's up there in 2nd, followed by Ralf Schumacher. Then it was this man, Montoya, followed by Coulthard, but clearly some kind of engine drama, we would imagine. And we saw a little bit of blue smoke, but nothing at the moment. And Coulthard with a new lap record of a 1:16.008, and the Ferrari mechanics underneath it are ready for, we are sure, Barrichello for what will be his 3rd stop of the afternoon. How is it going to shake out? It's going to be very close between Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, and a little bit further down the road, though, David Coulthard.
It takes 21 seconds to make a pit stop, to come in and get back out again. Here is Rubens Barrichello. He was, well, he's probably going to be passed by Ralf Schumacher, but can he get out in front of David Coulthard? That's the big question. A fantastic stop by the Ferrari mechanics, 7.7 seconds. Lots of action and life, as you can see in the pit lane. Where is David Coulthard? As Juan Montoya watches Barrichello rejoining, where is David Coulthard?
It's a great TV shot, isn't it? One driver walking back to the pits as one of his main rivals streams out alongside him back onto the racetrack to complete the afternoon, and that's the 8th non-finish of the season for Montoya. And Barrichello does indeed keep 3rd place, it would seem, at the moment, according to your screen. I think we saw Coulthard behind him.
Yeah, I think that's David Coulthard. There he is in the back of the picture. So Barrichello and Ferrari have gone very well indeed this afternoon. If you think about it, Martin, they qualified in 8th place with this car, and he's now 3rd. Coulthard qualified 4th and is now 4th. There's Eddie Irvine there. It looks like a fair bit of hubble-bubble, toil and trouble coming out of his airbox. The marshal pointing to him. Irvine looking like he wanted to continue there, but that car is going nowhere fast.
Irvine will just be reporting back to the pits to tell them what happened and how it happened. So, great afternoon for Eddie Irvine, though. Great drive there, and really pushing hard. And now you see the beginning of those engine problems as the pistons are meeting up with the valves and all of the other bits and pieces start getting mixed in. The oil and water comes together, and then you see coming up through the trumpets and the airbox will be some flame as well for good measure, and that is the end of a very expensive engine.
You're looking at the 2nd place man, Ralf Schumacher, who turned 26 yesterday, started his race on pole position, hoping for a victory. At the moment, a victory seems unlikely. I think the story from him, when we speak to him after the race, will be that the tyres just let him down slightly at the end. And Louise Goodman is with his teammate Juan Montoya.
Oh, Juan Montoya, bad luck. We saw a little puff of smoke out of the back of the car there. Was it an engine problem?
Yeah, it was a bit of an engine problem. A bit disappointed, but us racing. I'm pretty pleased with the performance of the car in the race, because we did a big sacrifice just so then qualifying going with the harder tire. I thought we could have had a shot of a pole if we would have been on the sub one, but we thought it was better for the race. I was running 2nd again, and it happened.
Michael then pretty much easy going for him at the front, and is this an opportunity for David Coulthard to have a stab to get closer to Barrichello? And yes, indeed it is. Barrichello went wide too. We've seen this a few times, haven't we? Coulthard drag racing out of Adelaide hairpin. That time around it could not work. Barrichello having the wider line, able to get on the power slightly earlier, and well, Coulthard there with just a sniff of that podium, but it wasn't enough, was it?
Absolutely fantastic little bit of action at the end of this Grand Prix. They're going to be squabbling over the final podium position right the way through to the flag. It's going to be a real grandstand finish between these two, both of them struggling clearly to get a lap time out of these very worn and very tired old Bridgestone tyres. And Rubens Barrichello, a slight lapse of concentration, just opened the door there for David Coulthard, and this feisty Scotsman, 30-year-old David Coulthard from Twineholme in Scotland. It's all he needed was to have a bit of a go. Look how close they are.
Button then off the racetrack. Jenson Button appears to have spun out of the race. I think that's just residual smoke out of the engines there from the fact it's been switched off while it was in doing an awful lot of hard work. So final lap then. Michael Schumacher is on his final tour. I don't see anywhere now that Coulthard's going to have an opportunity to take that 3rd place, and we pick up then leader Michael Schumacher.
Yes, he's had a sensational season so far, 5 victories. He's averaging almost 7 points a race, and last year when he went to won the World Championship he was averaging 6, so he's already well ahead of his own averages. He's breaking records left, right and centre. This is for his 50th career victory, and Michael Schumacher, where will it all end from him? A wonderful drive, managed to contain the threat from the BMW Williams team, managed to contain the threat also from McLaren, although of course we will wonder forever what would have happened if Coulthard hadn't had that stop-and-go penalty. Perhaps we would have had a repeat of the battle through Chateau for the last time. Down towards the chicane comes Michael Schumacher. It's been a very familiar sight throughout the 2001 Grand Prix season. He's won 10 of the last 14. Michael Schumacher wins the French Grand Prix for Ferrari. Vive la différence. Well done, Michael. His team boss, Jean Todt, of course, will be very pleased. And here's the battle for the final podium place between Rubens Barrichello and David Coulthard. Ralf Schumacher has crossed the line in 2nd place. Barrichello gets 3rd, Coulthard gets 4th. We're waiting then for Jarno Trulli to come through in 5th place. And a great day for Ferrari's team boss, the Frenchman Jean Todt, the man who's done so much really to turn this team around. Well, 50 up for Michael Schumacher. He's taken a big step this afternoon towards his 4th world title at the Champagne Flow in the home of Champagne here in France.
And a Hello once again from Manicourt in rural central France, where Michael Schumacher, Ferrari's most successful driver of all time, has won this race for the 5th time in 8 years.
It is very satisfying, and it was hard work, in particular until the second pit stop. Very tough work, maximum performance. But then obviously it was a little bit more easygoing, except some communication problems because radio didn't work, and I didn't know until probably 15 laps to the end what was finally the positioning.
It was very tough for us because we had tire problems, especially I had. On the second set especially, I mean, it was dark slow, actually. That was the reason that I decided to come in a bit earlier as planned and to change the third set, and that went a bit better.
I'm very pleased. I think it's been a hell of a race. I think, you know, it was the proof of yesterday that I wasn't happy. It was a little bit of a misunderstanding in between myself and my engineers. We didn't get the maximum out of the car, and this morning the car felt a lot better, so it was only the case to not get in trouble at the first few laps and being just attack everywhere.
I've seen last year being thrown out 2 races behind each other, and you never know. Racing is a different story. It's a sport and it's unpredictable. It's a comfortable lead on the other side, but not done yet.
Well, Eddie, hard lines in the end, but what a strong run.
No, it's great. I have more fun. This is the slowest car I've probably ever had for qualifying, but it makes the racing interesting. You're always coming up through, and you know, with great tires, and that's I think what's making our qualifying performances a bit weaker, because I think the Bridgestone's aiming more for qualifying, and the Bridgestone guys are getting ahead of us in qualifying, and in the race we're much quicker, but we got to overtake them. But it makes for great racing, but it's hard work.
David, the look on your face kind of says it all. That stop-go penalty cost you dear.
Yeah, at the moment I'm not sure whether it was on the way into the pit lane or the way out. I was very surprised when I got the call, but you know, obviously I did speed, so you have to pay the penalty.
The gap to Michael obviously getting a bit bigger now. Is the job still achievable though?
Yeah, I think that all we can do is wait to the end of the season and review where things are, rather than trying to guess what's happening during the course of the season. You know, it's entirely feasible he could not finish a few races.
And it's entirely feasible that you could do well at Silverstone too, because that's always been a good race for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, we've won the last couple of years, and it'd be great to have a win in home soil again this year.
Just confirming the result for you then, another 10 out of 10 for Michael Schumacher. Ralph seemingly quite content with that second place. Barrichello doing really well to get on the podium after where he started. Coulthard, 3 points his return from Manicourt. Trulli getting Jordan's first point since Barcelona back in April, and another point for Sauber from Nick Heidfeld. And that means Michael Schumacher is now a massive 31 clear of David Coulthard. Ralf Schumacher overtaking Barrichello. Montoya led the race but failed to finish for the 8th time this season. And Ferrari now with a massive 52 points lead in the constructors, on course for a win double. 6 more points for Williams in 3rd. Heidfeld getting that point for Sauber, and Trulli a welcome couple for Jordan. Well, Tony Jardine, it all went wrong for McLaren even before the race.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm wondering, Jim, whether there's a link between what happened to Häkkinen on the grid and what potentially happened to David Coulthard in terms of perhaps the software not working on the speed limiter. Look, here's Häkkinen. He was stuck on the grid in Brazil. He was stuck on the grid in Austria. His clutch went when he was leading in Spain. What terrible, terrible bad luck for Mika Häkkinen. Just 9 points. But it's the software that switched the engine off of David Coulthard at Monte Carlo as well. And we're just trying to work out, along with Coulthard, whether that affected his speed limiter, which got him a 10-second penalty.
Yeah, I think in commentary, Martin Brundle described what happened to McLaren as trivial, but it's very, very serious in terms of Coulthard's World Championship quest.
It's painful for Ron Dennis. It's painful for all the people at McLaren who are watching that, and it's a real uphill struggle. It's not outside the realms of possibility. Of course they're going to work hard and keep their heads down and hopefully win at the British Grand Prix, but it's far from trivial, you know, and it's so complex, the software systems of Grand Prix cars.
But speeding in the pits, I mean, how can that really happen?
Well, all that can happen is that the driver potentially, and this was the pit stop at the time, they were all going on, and David was briefly in the lead at this point, lap 27, 9.1 seconds, thinking all was well, no problem. Did he put the pit lane limiter button on early enough when he crossed the line, or did he take it off before he reached the white line at the end? Now, the light normally flashes on the back with the little fuel flap up as well, which signifies that the pit lane limiter is on. And we didn't see it flashing as he went out there. So was there a problem with the electrics of the car? And this means that he came in just 3 laps later for the stop-go. Groans all over United Kingdom. A lot of the fans over here in France watching as well, because it means he's got an even tougher battle. But out David goes, and there's only one race this year, that was Canada, where engine went, where he hasn't scored, you know, points, the same as Michael Schumacher, who went out in San Marino with brake problems. He nearly got 3rd place, and you know, he just keeps battling away, David Coulthard, so you can't discount him.
Right, so consistently, nearly did need a few more today. Driver of the race from your point of view, though, Eddie Irvine.
Tremendous, because he's had that 3rd place in Monte Carlo. His tail is up. He knows this car is getting better and better. Here he is chasing Olivier Panis for 9th place, and every place counts, but so neatly inside at the Lycée there, which is the last corner before you go back onto the pit straight, and just slots in beautifully. And here on Heinz-Harald Frentzen, this was for 8th place, so he's going the right way. He's getting up the order and heading towards the points. And then this happens, unfortunately, with the Jaguar Cosworth engine. We actually saw flames coming out of the inlet there of the big air scoop just above his head, which is a great shame, but a lot of promise for Jaguar.
But we have to say to Irvine's former teammate, Michael Schumacher, we are not worthy.
Tremendous. We're in the middle of a Ferrari era, and a tremendous role. You know, Alain Prost has won this event 6 times. This man here, Michael Schumacher, has now won it 5 times, 94, 95, 97, 98. But 50 Grand Prix wins, that is some feat, and puts him just 1 behind the great Alain Prost himself, and quite rightly, the team giving him the big hugs here. He is, you know, the best in the world. He deserves to be on that top step, and there's the jump that signifies it all. And as James was saying in the commentary, you know, he really enjoys his wins, and we love watching him win.
Do you think he's going to make it 51, equal Alain Prost's record finally at Silverstone?
No, my money's on David Coulthard to do it there, and get the triple, the first man since Jim Clark to do that.
Tony, thank you very much indeed. So it is indeed next stop Silverstone. It's always a very big weekend for us. I understand there are still a few tickets available, by the way. Watch the qualifying here from 12:30 on ITV. Our build-up starts at midday on the Sunday. Highlights 11:15 Sunday night, and that programme repeated ITV2 7 o'clock on the Monday. World title, a very long shot now for David Coulthard. The book is all set to close on Michael Schumacher, but that Silverstone hat-trick, well, that would be ample compensation. Good night.